Yes, so Jared, what are some of the factors that homeowners should consider when they're choosing a furnace installer?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes customers they're going to ask about a brand, a product brand that we put in, and I think you really nailed it on the head right there. Is I always tell customers that truly the contractor is going to matter more than, quite frankly, the product brand that they're putting in, right? All equipment, is relatively equal. I mean, some contractors are going to prefer one brand over another, as we do here. But for the most part, all their quality is relatively similar. So, what's really going to matter more than that product brand is really, the proper sizing of the equipment. Did that contractor walk around the house with you? Did they measure the house to perform a manual J? Or are they just replacing with a like size piece of equipment that's there? Are they following all the proper practices and procedures for fluing the equipment, the length of flues, the amount of airflow that unit can handle with the existing ductwork in the house? So there's so many factors outside of a brand when it comes to a contractor that's going to matter more, and just making sure our customers ask the right questions and we as a contractor give them the correct answers is going to be the best way to move forward.
Okay, so in terms of the furnace itself, what are the best fuel options for furnaces these days?
Yeah, here on Cape, we essentially have three different fuel sources that are going to be common for furnaces. Your most common is going to be natural gas. Your next option would be propane. Then there's also oil, which we don't service or install. So, oil propane, quite frankly, at that point, a lot of those customers should look at heat pump options, because quite frankly, the heat pumps are going to be less expensive to operate than those fuel types. As well as there's great incentives through the Mass Save program. However, if you are a natural gas customer, that is going to be the least expensive way to heat your home here on Cape Cod. So a lot of people that have gas systems like to stick with gas systems, and the new systems are often more efficient than what they might have existing at their home, have different features and benefits to them that they might not have. We've got really good indoor air quality options as well. So, really it's going to be case by case basis on, what that customer existing fuel source is, what's existing in the house, and potentially what direction they're going to want to move now and into the future.
Do you still compare furnaces by efficiency ratings? This furnace is 95% efficient or 98% efficient, something like that.
Yep, absolutely. Furnaces get rated on a scale we call AFUE. That's annual fuel utilization efficiency. Best way to put it, that I put it to our customers, is if you pay for a dollar's worth of fuel, whether that be propane, oil, or gas, how much of that fuel is turned directly into the heat for your home, right? So our modern natural gas furnaces are upwards of 97% efficient. So that means for every dollar's worth of natural gas that you're paying for, you're getting 97 cents worth of heat out of, which is pretty spectacular. Whereas some of the older systems, the systems that some of my customers might have, are only about 80% efficient. So, just by changing out that furnace, you're going to get a pretty big bump in your efficiency. Propane furnaces are essentially the exact same furnaces that I'd buy as a natural gas one. We just change it in the field to work with propane. So often their efficiencies are pretty much on par with natural gas. Oil, which as I said, we don't do, but their efficiencies are just not as great. Generally, you're going to be somewhere between the low to mid 80s. There are some more high end oil furnaces that are considered condensing oil furnaces, but with all the upkeep and the cost it takes to keep those units running, just the initial cost of the customer, those aren't all that common.
And what's involved in the process of installing a furnace? Whether it be, also just like changing from an old natural gas furnace to a newer one that's maybe has a better efficiency, or maybe even like swapping out an old oil burning furnace for a new modern gas one.
Yeah, so let's just first let's also define what a furnace is, because there is a lot of misconceptions, and we do get a lot of customers that call here not quite understanding, and it's no fault of theirs, what kind of system. But two common terms would be furnace and then boiler. So your furnace would be a forced air system. So often when we have a customer that calls us, we're asking, do you have ductwork? Do you have vents in the floor or possibly in the ceiling? So that would be a furnace style system. A boiler style system, that's something where you're going to either have like radiators, panel radiators, or baseboard heat. So just to better define those for the customers, but when it comes to installing furnaces, if it is a new construction home, which often is what we're doing in new construction home, that's going to be new ductwork throughout the house. If it's a two-story house, we're probably going to have a system up in the attic, one in the basement. Maybe we do one system in the basement, zone it, to have a zone for the first floor, second floor. So that's obviously going to, require us to go in and install all that ductwork. If it is a replacement, that does mean that they probably already have all that ductwork in place, which at that point is just a push and pull. So we're going to take out your old furnace. We're going to put the new one in its place. We're going to flue it, reconnect your existing ductwork, add in any sort of indoor air quality products that you might have chosen, and we're off and running.
And how long does that usually take from when you first start to getting that all up and running?
Yeah, so we'll just stick with the replacement market. But oftentimes, if we're middle of the winter time, we're not leaving that customer without heat. So, often we'll tell them, before we get there in the morning, crank up the heat. That way the house is nice and warm. And we'll take down the system first thing and we'll have it up and running by the end of that day. If it does require maybe a dual fuel type setup or air conditioning, often that will go into day two, depending on the install. But either way, we could do these replacements in the middle of February, and customers won't even notice.
And you're able to do that quickly because in that case where you're doing a replacement, you're not changing out all of the ductwork and things like that. That stuff is all in place, and you're just replacing the furnace itself.
Exactly. Unless the duct system, which we do come across, is really just poorly designed from the get go, the original install. We're able to utilize the existing ductwork. Maybe we do need to make some modifications. But yeah, I mean, oftentimes when we're doing these replacements, the infrastructure is already there. So the hard work, if you will, is almost kind of already done. We've just got to replace the heart of that system, which happens to be the furnace.
Are there any permits or approvals that are required for a furnace installation like that?
Yep, here in Massachusetts, it actually requires three different trades to replace your furnace. You're going to need a sheet metal person, which would be us. You're going to need a plumber or gas fitter to reconnect your gas. And then you're going to need a licensed electrician to hook up the line voltage electrical. So, all those things, depending on the town, most you're definitely going to have a gas and electrical permit. Some towns, if you're just replacing a furnace, don't have any mechanical or sheet metal permits. Other towns do. So that can be a very town by town specific, but we'll walk our customers right through that.
So is that something that you guys handle all yourselves, or is it something that you have to work with the customer, on getting those permits?
Yep, we that's everything we do. It's part of our project. It's part of the scope of work. The customer may or may not have to be present for the inspector to get into the home. But yes, that is something that we're going to set up on the behalf of the customer.
Are there any challenges with, furnace installation on Cape Cod? Any kind of situations that you've seen with some of the typical houses, there that where the project is, a little bit different than you might see in other places?
Well, again, it's very situational. If we're dealing with an existing house, maybe we're trying to retrofit in. We got to look at the ability to actually get ductwork in that home. Do we have space in the attic? Do we have space in the basement to run that ductwork? So that's certainly one challenge. Another challenge that we do have here is high efficiency furnaces in attics. These furnaces do create as a byproduct condensate, similar to the exhaust on your car in the wintertime. You'll see some water dripping out of it. Our furnaces do the exact same thing. Now, if you're here, all year long, this isn't a secondary home, we can certainly put a high efficiency furnace without risking, freezing that unit. If there's a second home and you maybe are keeping the house at 50 degrees or on the cooler side of things, we often don't encourage people to go with those high efficiency furnaces because we're going to run into those instances where we possibly could freeze that unit and cause some trouble.